am Ciğdem Penn. I'm a market researcher and an entrepreneur. I have set up businesses in 3 different countries and conducted research in many more. Along the way, I have learned how to make choices, and some tough ones, and how to handle change successfully. So I thought that if I come here today and share my story, then I may just inspire you. And some of the principles that I will share today, they still inspire me. As a young girl, I was drawn to study psychology. And I was lucky enough to get into Boğaziçi University, where I studied psychology and had an interest in behavioral change. And I went on to LSE, and I pursued my interest in resistance to change, organizational psychology, and I did a master's degree there. And while studying at LSE, I have come to learn that if you wanted to stop resistance, you had to actually let go of your fear, adopt the process, and embrace the change. In other words, if you really wanted to change, and if you understood the logic behind it, if you were able to make some choices and embrace the consequences, the sky was the limit. This kind of resonated well with my independent spirit. Halfway through the term at LSE, I found myself expelled from the residence halls where I was staying, which may be the subject of another talk. But today, I will move on and tell you what I did. So I was there, homeless, no place to go. You know, London is pretty cold, and those who lived in London, they will know that finding a decent place on a student budget is practically impossible. So I was there looking at advertisements hours on end, and I couldn't find anything. I had made a plan, and I was visiting a neighborhood every day, and Hampstead was my next stop. I loved Hampstead. It was green, it was beautiful, it reminded me of home. So I really wanted to live there. But the problem is that Hampstead is pretty much the most expensive neighborhood in London that you can find. So I went and visited really horrible places with broken heating systems and terrible, terrible landlords. And finally, I walked into a estate agent. And I said what I was looking for. Not much, really, a small room where I could just study. And then I said, this is my budget. The guy was old and a bit funny. And then he looked at me and said, never feel desperate in life. So I really was desperate at that point. And then he took me to a beautiful house with 3 bedrooms. Can you imagine, in Hampstead? And asked me to take it and rent it to 2 other students. So I did what he told me, and I took a financial risk. But I spent an entire year in Hampstead throwing tons of parties and enjoying the heat. So that was wonderful. But then a year in London at LSE goes well very quickly. So I went back home, very confident, thinking that I can do pretty much anything I wanted in life. I lived in Hampstead for a year on a student salary. And then I went in, and I just figured out that actually our economy had collapsed in my absence. There were no jobs. There was none. It took me months to secure a position in an international consultancy firm, which I wanted. And a position was offered to me on the condition that I will be paid the minimum wage. I worked 6 days a week, 16 hours a day, and got paid minimum wage for a little while. And it felt very, very desperate. So I remember the estate agent, and then at the end of the 3rd month, I packed up and I moved back to London. I searched the advertisements again and again, and I finally found a job in London in this time international market research firm, and my career started just the way I wanted. All I wanted to do was to build a strong career and a good family. Back then, I didn't know how difficult this was, but that's what I wanted to. So I got married with the biggest love of my life. And we had our first baby in London. I was still partying, but maybe a little differently at the company of our baby. I was working long hours. I was learning tons, a lot of learning there. And then I got pregnant again, and we had our second baby. And it was not as easy as I thought it would be. So, but still, I'm a hard-working person. I was working. And then I remember one day being particularly difficult. It was around 8 o'clock at night, and back then I was a junior, so I had to have a director sign my report off before I could send it to a client. And then I went up to our director, and I said, could you please look at the report? And the client is waiting. I really have to send it. And then the guy looks at me. I am 7 months pregnant, huge belly. I have swollen feet, red eyes, very tired person. And then he asked me to wait until 10 p.m. I said, fine, because that's what you do in Britain. You don't complain. I said, fine. And then I went on and wrote my letter of resignation, along with some pizza that I ordered for some comfort. And then I had learned that I had to look at my options differently. So I set up Xsights in a tiny little spare bedroom in London, and I started working. The first year, the business was booming. I had jobs in Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Moldova, not to mention the local clients in the UK and all these people that I knew. It was perfect, and kids loved it because I was more around. I was working even more, but it was okay because I had control of my time. And then what happened? Then my husband got a job offer in Nepal, Kathmandu to be precise. And he really wanted to go because it meant a big promotion for him. And not only he wanted to go, he also said, you have to come with me because I don't want to be away from you. So after long hesitations and some small arguments there, we relocated to Kathmandu. And my daughter was 5, and my son was about 12 months old. Some of my friends were jealous. Some of them thought that I was crazy. Some of them were sad for me. But all of them thought that my career was over. I could not have any more career anymore. And sure enough, the transition was not easy. At some point, I even got ill. But then once I got over the initial shock, I thought, look, these are all these UN agencies here, and market research skills were very useful for them. So I started consulting with UNICEF, UNFPA, WFP, international NGOs, tons of them. And then I started getting contracts. I hired a couple of people. I started getting contracts from telecom operators, some multinational that I knew from London, and some that I had met during networking. I have lived in Nepal for 3 years, 3 wonderful years. I had the time of my life, acquired wonderful skills, met beautiful people. And today I am proud to be the founding president of the DEIG, Turkish and Nepal chapter. And I work on a voluntary basis to promote economic relations between 2 countries. Then my husband and I, we decided to go to Turkey. We wanted to teach our kids the Turkish culture, a decision that I will be grateful forever. But Turkey that I left when I was 22 had changed a bit. So it was quite difficult to set up an office in Turkey. I worked tons. I used to work and then go home at the usual time. put the kids to sleep and go back to the office and work until the morning. I kept working, and my company boomed. We became one of the fastest growing online research agency. Then we expanded our spectrum, and now we are a fully independent research agency, and we're doing some pretty amazing work. But I have decided that actually I wanted to have another baby. Expand my family, have that strong family that I was really imagining. Some of my friends were jealous. Some of them thought I was crazy. All of them thought I was ruining my life. And then that my career would be over. And, well, my little boy came along. He ripped my life apart. I had to let go of my controlling habits, expand my support system to huge amounts, learn a new level of patience, and actually not sleep. I had to let go of my sleep again. But it is okay because he is really, really wonderful, and he added huge amounts of joy to my life. And once again, I have learned that you don't actually have to be limited by your circumstances. And that if you are determined, and if you want to achieve something, and if you really work for it, and you have some support around you, and you have some great people, you can build your support system, everything is possible. So having a third child actually made me and my company a stronger company and a stronger person today. Please remember that your choices can be bigger than your circumstances. Thank you.